Hello, and welcome to Grade.com Talks With. Today, we're talking with Dr. Laurie Marker, founder and executive director at Cheetah Conservation Fund, an organization dedicated to saving the cheetah in the wild. And if you're new to our podcast, please press subscribe button either on YouTube or your podcast app, because today we're going to learn about an organization that envisions a world in which cheetahs live and flourish in coexistence with people within a sustainable system that is protective of the environment, socially responsible, and economically viable. Hello, Dr. Laurie. Welcome to Grade.com Talks. We're excited to have you here.
Thank you. Nice to be with you.
Wonderful. Could you please describe Cheetah Conservation Fund for someone who is not familiar with your work?
Well, Cheetah Conservation Fund basically is to try to help save cheetahs in the wild. However, the numbers are very low. So throughout the world, we're dealing with less than 7,500 cheetahs. We're dealing with cheetahs found in about 23 countries. And from that, we are based in Namibia, with another base up in Somaliland, and partners in many of the different range countries. So our work is broad, and we work through a variety of different levels, from research, conservation, and education. So all of our work is science-based, and we try to conduct conservation to keep cheetahs living in the wild, and a lot of awareness and education so that people are aware that the cheetah has a problem on a global basis.
Mm-hmm. It's great to see that you are based in Namibia, where majority of cheetah population lives, and you are able to see all the struggles they are facing and perform the research and conservation work that you are doing in the habitat of the majority of cheetahs. So it's wonderful to see that. And could you please, for people who are not familiar with cheetahs as a species, could you please tell us about cheetahs as species, how did they become endangered, and their uniqueness?
Well, first, I think I'd talk about their uniqueness. They are the fastest of all the land animals, and they can go up to about 110 kilometers per hour. With that, they are Africa's, and they used to be Asia's, top predator, where they are the best hunter on the savanna lands. With that, though, going so fast, so many of the big, powerful, dangerous things that protect their prey are gone. So they don't have big, powerful teeth, big, sharp claws. All they really have is that speed. And from that, they are losing ground primarily due to a few things. One is that of most of the cheetahs that are found are not in protected areas. And with that, primarily because these protected areas are not all that large throughout their ranges. And there's a high concentration in these protected areas of lions and hyenas, even leopards, which are cause cheetahs a lot of conflict, where they will kill their young or steal their food. So with that, the cheetah gets pushed out of these game parks, and about 80% of all cheetah populations remaining are found outside of protected areas. And with that, that puts them in conflict with humans and their livestock. So human-wildlife conflict is, again, one of the biggest problems facing cheetahs. Then another problem facing them is that globally is, for every animal, is loss of habitat. So with the cheetah being pushed out of these reserves, and then they're in competition with humans, as the human population continues to grow and their livestock, that puts them in even more conflict with humans due to this loss of habitat. And then another area that is really affecting them is that of illegal wildlife pet trade. And this is primarily up in the Horn of Africa. And it's also tied into human-wildlife conflict, where people will catch the cubs and then sell them into the illegal wildlife pet market, which has primarily been in the Middle East, which has affected their populations drastically. And then we tie in the fact that the cheetah is a species that lacks genetic diversity. They went through a population bottleneck about 10 to 12,000 years ago, leaving all the cheetahs very, very similar. And as the populations continue to be smaller and more fragmented, this loss of genetic diversity causes them great problems in not only reproductive abnormalities, which we've seen, but also how they are affected by potential diseases, and then how that also is affecting them around the ecological and environmental problems that they have to adapt to. So those are all kind of, in a nutshell, the problems facing cheetahs.
Thank you so much for shedding the light on the uniqueness of cheetahs. Understanding that they
I
are
hope I covered that okay for
they
you.
are the fastest. That's wonderful. That's a great fact to know. But it's very sad to see that the majority of cheetahs are living in unprotected areas, and they do require protection. And then the coexistence with human is making it challenging, as well as the loss of the habitat that is happening across all species. And understanding that the human actions have put them in danger, and now we need to take precautions, and we need to take actions to save cheetahs so they don't become extinct. You first traveled to Southwest Africa, now Namibia, to conduct research in last century into the rewilding of captive-born cheetahs that led to the further formation of your organization. Could you please tell us why you decided to save cheetahs?
Oh my, well, I started working with cheetahs, as you said, in the last century. That's a pretty scary thing to think about. But it was in the 70s, and I was fascinated by the cheetah. And what I realized is that people didn't know very much about them. And the more questions I asked, the more I was told, well, when you find something out about cheetahs, let us know. That they don't breed well in captivity. And I was running a captive facility, which was and developed to be one of the few places in the world actually successfully breeding cheetahs in captivity. But from that, we found that we were losing them in the wild, and that, again, nobody knew anything really what to do. Even though people have revered cheetahs for over 5,000 years, the populations back in the 70s were 3 times the size of what the populations are today. And I kept thinking that somebody would actually save the cheetah. If I kept telling people that the cheetah had needs, that somebody would do something. And again, all I would get back was, well, when you find something out about the cheetah, let us know. And I said, well, shoot, I guess I'm going to have to do this. So what caused me to do it was, when I came here to Namibia, I actually brought a captive-born cheetah to Namibia and taught her how to hunt, which was part of my research. And I didn't leave her here, but the job was to find out what steps were involved and if a captive-born animal could actually learn how to hunt and thus potentially be rewilded. So the answer would be yes, they can learn how to hunt and they could be rewilded, except there's this human problem. And what I found is that farmers were killing cheetahs like flies, 800 to 900 a year. And back in the 1980s, the farmers here in Namibia had killed close to 800 to 9,000 cheetahs, which is more cheetahs than are left in the world today. And that was pretty much what clinched it for me, is that if nobody's going to do it, then I guess I'm going to have to do it. I always call that the they factor, that we all think that somebody's going to take care of things. They will take care of it. And what I found was that they are not going to take care of it, and that if I was going to try to save the species, something had to be done. And so I set up the Cheetah Conservation Fund in 1990 as the first organization working on cheetahs. We are a global organization and the largest organization trying to help save the wild cheetah. We have a variety of programs that we do that under. And I set up these programs by actually talking with the people here in Namibia about how we could stop them from killing 800 to 900 cheetahs a year. And that, was it because they were actually killing their livestock, or was it because of a perceived threat? And what we learned is it was more of a perceived threat. And I think this is maybe what I've done on a global scale, is that predators on a global scale are losing ground because of our livestock and of our ways of managing our livestock, as well as what our perceived ideas are about about predators. We're afraid of them, and only good predator is a dead predator. And that's what I was finding with cheetahs. And that's why getting in here and working together with the farmers, we've developed a lot of programs to help them live together with cheetahs. I call them tools that have been well researched. And not only can we live with cheetahs, we found that we could actually, through good livestock management and good wildlife management and rangeland management, live together with pretty much any predator, if indeed we as people are willing to take those steps forward.
Wow, that's such an inspiring and beautiful story. So thank you so much for being a pioneer in cheetah research and dedicating 50 years of your life and 30 years to the formation of this organization, as well as the cause of it, and bringing the awareness and shedding the light on the importance of the cheetahs, and raising issues of how they are becoming endangered, and working, as mentioned by you, with the farmers, with the people who actually interact with cheetahs to make sure to build sustainable ways of coexistence, so they don't become extinct. So I really applaud you for your wonderful work and dedicating your life for such a noble cause. You mentioned that several you mentioned several projects that are directed to conservation. Could you please tell us your conservation strategy and some of the work that you are doing in conservation work of cheetahs?
Sure, and around that, really, it has revolved around livestock and wildlife. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I selected Namibia to set up our international base was that Namibia still has a good wildlife population. And so having wildlife for a predator is really, really important. And the more we've learned about that, if you manage your livestock appropriately, you can actually live in harmony with these predators, if indeed you do have a wildlife base. So a lot of the work that we have been involved in is programs that we call Future Farmers of Africa. And those are training programs that we work together with the farming communities in teaching them many aspects around that of the health of their livestock. We found that 60% of any livestock loss can actually be reduced by better training of the rural communities of understanding the health aspects of their livestock, how to trim hooves, how to give proper vaccinations. And those are aspects around rural Africa that most people don't think about. We've done a lot of training programs with farmers, not only here, but actually in many of the different regions of Africa where cheetahs are. We've also, in many of the different countries, started training veterinarians in them learning what the farmers actually need to know in order to take care of their livestock. Because livestock care doesn't just come under a veterinarian, it comes under management. Other programs that we've started here in Namibia, which I think have been very, very important, which have been the use of our livestock guarding dogs, where our livestock guarding dogs are a large breed of dog, which have been used in Europe for thousands of years. The dog that we have used most here in Namibia is an Anatolian Shepherd, or also called a Kangal dog from Turkey. They've been used over 5,000 years, protecting livestock from the large predators that were up in the Anatolian plateaus. And so we have used this breed of dog here in Namibia, where we breed it and we place it with the farming communities. And we've seen between an 80 to 100% reduction of livestock loss for the farmers that have these dogs. Now, the dogs alone are not a tool that I always call the silver bullet. It's not, the one thing that's going to work. It's an integrated program, and that's why all of our programs, as we call them, are integrated. And also growing enough wildlife. Namibia is a country where our wildlife is very important. And with that, managing our wildlife also means managing our rangelands. And in most of the areas where the cheetah is found, they're found in very, very arid landscapes. And so with this, you have to be very careful of not overgrazing your land. Where you have overgrazing, you can also have other bushes come up. And we have found where here in Namibia that we've had a huge problem around bush encroachment or thickened thorn bush, which has taken over. And we see this in many of the areas throughout the cheetah's range, which has been severely overgrazed by so much livestock. And so with this, we've looked at a habitat restoration project, and we're taking that into looking at biomass feed for livestock as well, and trying to open up these habitats that have been overgrazed. This is also a form of desertification, where these bushes actually are drinking the groundwater. And in an arid area where cheetahs are found, this has affected the whole ecosystem that the cheetah is a part of, from the grasslands to the prey that's in there, to the habitat, and to where the cheetahs are able to live. So all of this is interconnected. And so when you can't just say save the cheetah, all of these become issues. And so in the different areas that we work in, we've found what the problems are facing the cheetah and then how to actually address them. But most of these problems are human related, and they are related around that of livestock and poverty. And so poverty is something that is critical, I think, to many of our critically endangered species today that are found in oftentimes lands where people are very, very poor. And they're not going to necessarily think about these endangered species. They're thinking about themselves and a way to get out of poverty. And so what we've tried to do is to let people see that the cheetah can actually be a benefit to them by the programs that we put forward, by saying you can have healthier livestock, healthy rangeland, by not killing the cheetah, by teaching people how they can live in harmony with the wildlife and the predators. And it is it's a complex issue, and I know everybody who is dealing with issues today around saving our earth and our world are all dealing with the complexities, but how they are interlinked are just fascinating. And I think that that's a lot of what we do is we work with people and their problems to solve problems and make solutions so that the cheetah has a place to live.
Mm-hmm. What I really like about your approach is integrated solutions. So as you mentioned, there's no one solution that can solve and save cheetahs. So we have to come up with integrated solutions that will impact the, different aspects of the research and the work to for the conservation work of cheetahs. And the fact that you are training farmers, you're training veterinarians, and also breeding guardian dogs and providing them to the farmers, and doing a lot of research work and then implementing what you found out in research through your programs. It's very, very wonderful to see that the actual work is being done, and it's being done with the cooperation with farmers and communities that live next to the cheetahs, so they can live in harmony and coexistence. So that's wonderful to see. Another aspect of your work is raising awareness, education in the on the cheetahs. Could you please tell us about your field research and education center and your efforts in educating public on environmental studies?
Very wonderful. Well, we do have a wonderful base here in Namibia, which has grown over a 30-year period of time. But we have an extensive education department, and that is around school children as well. So we deal with maybe 25,000 school kids a year. Of course, last year with COVID, we have not been able to reach those targets, but we have put all of our educational materials now online as well. Working with schools, we again talk about our integrated programs, which are a predator's role in the ecosystem. So you have to start by teaching people what is an ecosystem and how is everything interconnected. And from that, I think that basis gives children something to think about. Here in Namibia, after 30 years, it's been pretty exciting because so many kids have been through our programs. Anywhere you go, they'll say, oh, cheetahs, yes, you came to our school, or we came to your center. Our center here in Namibia is based on on a large piece of land, and nature reserve, but it is also an integrated reserve where we do have our livestock as well. So we are a model farm. We are a working center. So we have our cattle, goats, and sheep with our livestock guarding dogs, and our staff are all trained in how to best care for our livestock and show people all those aspects. And so when school kids come here, or when farmers come here, or visiting researchers, those are all the aspects that they are involved in. Our research revolves around many of the things that all predator people are involved in: radio collaring or satellite collaring of cats, that we monitor their home ranges. We are also doing camera trapping grids. So we're looking at the other wildlife, which is in the areas where the cheetahs and leopards, which we also study, and African wild dogs are also a part of the work that we do. They're all in need of people not killing them. And with that, our work is very broad along those levels. So our education center is also open to the public, so people can come here. Back before COVID days, we were welcoming about close to 16 or 17,000 people a year, which would come and visit us. These are oftentimes international visitors who are coming to Namibia to see our wonderful wildlife, but also coming in here and learning about what it takes to save wildlife. What is conservation? The basics of conservation. Here at our center, we do have a fully registered veterinary clinic. We have 3 veterinarians here at this point in time, a lot of veterinary students. We have a lot of interns that come. So we get interns from around the world as well as from Namibia. Of course, many of our Namibian interns become staff, which is great. But our international interns, many of them have gone off to develop wonderful, either compatible organizations with ours, or other great organizations working on conservation. So a lot of our interns have, again, done wonderful, wonderful things as well. And then we also have a genetics laboratory, and it is, I think, one of the only genetics laboratories of its kind anywhere in the world, but definitely in Africa, because we're not connected to a university. We are at a field base, and here we are not only studying the cheetah, but many of the other carnivore species, and a lot of partnerships that we work with on other wildlife species as well. So our genetics lab is a full-scale lab where we've got PCRs and genetic sequencers. And so again, we get a lot of students in also looking at the genetics of not only the cheetah, again, but as some of the other species that we work with as well. Elephants, we work with rhinos, caracal, leopard, so a variety of species that we are working on within the genetics lab. But our main focus, again, is on cheetahs. And as I said, because cheetahs do lack genetic diversity, we're studying the cheetahs throughout their range. So we've just had a master's student that finished his work from our partners up in Kenya on their work with their cheetahs. And a lot of what we do is we use scat. We call it black gold. And from this, we can find a lot of things out. Some of what we find from that scat is what the cheetahs ate by washing the scat and getting the hair in and looking at that scat under a microscope, or finding out more about the individual animal or the relationship of that animal into the population. We're also looking at the illegal wildlife trade, and samples from these traded animals that have been confiscated are also being studied in our genetics lab down here in Namibia. So that's kind of what goes on here. We welcome people to come and visit. We welcome interns. So if anybody listening wants to come and learn more about all these different programs, we put the students right to help working right with us. And then we try to publish. And so I think our research being published is also a very important aspect of the work that we do for the academic community and for teaching as well. But we then try to put that back into conservation action as well as education.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Your field research and education center is indeed doing a wonderful work in showcasing how cheetahs interact with livestock, as well as bringing attention to the cheetahs and raising awareness on them, and why their role in the ecosystem, and why predators are important in general in the ecosystem. So that's wonderful to see. And your genetic lab doing all the research, analyzing, researching not only the cheetahs but other wildlife that are in a risk of being extinct. And it's what you're doing is very beneficial for our environment and for the sustainability of our planet. If someone would like to support a Cheetah Conservation Fund, how can they do that?
Well, we welcome support. We are a nonprofit organization in a variety of countries here in Namibia, as well as that in Somaliland, throughout Europe, Canada, Australia, the United States. So we do welcome people to learn more about us. The best way to do that is to go to our website, which is cheetah.org, and to learn about the different programs. And if you want to donate to us, we welcome that. And so we do work off of people's support from around the world to help us, as well as small grants. And so, again, we also work with a lot of volunteers, and volunteers help in a lot of different ways as well.
Wonderful. The link to the Cheetah Conservation Fund's website will be provided in the description, so you viewing and listening can go to the website and familiarize yourself with the great work Dr. Laurie and the team at Cheetah Conservation Fund is doing. Thank you so much, Dr. Laurie. It was wonderful to get to know you and the very impactful work you are doing at Cheetah Conservation Fund.
Thank you so much. I'll look forward to meeting you, I hope.
Thank you. For you listening, if you enjoyed this conversation, please press like and share button, because this will show the YouTube and podcast algorithm that this conversation is important, that we need to save cheetahs in the past. Thank you, and see you in the next episode.